Wicked. So, I recently went and saw Wicked for Good, which, for those of you who don't know, is the second of two movies adopting the Broadway musical Wicked into cinemas. If you're watching this, I assume you kind of know the story or saw the movie, but spoiler warning if you didn't. Wicked has been a roaring success, and I'm sure Universal will be content with creating no more Wicked content ever now that the story is resolved in a satisfying and totally conclusive way. I saw the first movie when it came out last year, so I've seen them both, and that was my first exposure to Wicked. I knew nothing about it going in to the point that this popcorn bucket in the movie theater actually spoiled part of the ending for me. I am not a Broadway aficionado, and in general, I actually don't like musicals that much because I feel like the characters change really quickly and the stories can be kind of saccharine, not calling anybody out. And if you enjoy musicals, say that's all you love that for you. With the Wicked movies, though, I was deeply impressed actually by most of the story and especially the visual elements. The set designers, the costume people, man, the choreographers just filled out the world of Oz, especially the Emerald City, in such a rich and compelling way. And when I sat down for this movie about the witches from The Wizard of Oz, I was not expecting to have conversations about steampunk furniture design on the way home from the theater. I want an Oz conversation pit now. So there's that. I'm saying all this to say I actually liked these movies and I understand why people have enjoyed the story and the music of the Wicked musical over the years. But, not to be heartless, I think the navigation of the tone shift between the first and second halves of the story was done in a very jarring way. Elphaba and Galinda both realize that the paths they've chosen for themselves have led to the destruction of their joy. Elphaba becomes increasingly radicalized as her efforts to help the animals are met with bad press, right? So the action is rising. But about the time it seems that Elphaba has fully accepted the dark side with the song No Good Deed, Galinda shows up, and the two of them have a heartfelt song about how they've positively impacted each other's lives, or they helped each other realize stuff, or things, or whatever. The problem with this tender moment is that Elphaba has a crying child locked in her castle dungeon for the duration of it. So it's kind of hard to feel a great deal of sympathy for her. But what's really confusing is how things go with Fiyero at the end of the story. Because here's my understanding, and if you've read the Wicked book or if you know more about this than me, I'm sure there's a lot of context that I'm missing. But I saw it in the movie theater, and this is what I was left thinking. Fiyero became the Scarecrow, and therefore survived torture for treason during No Good Deed, communicated with Elphaba that he was alive, and became complicit in the plot to fake murder her with water, relying on the press engine of rumors about Elphaba and water to make the public believe she died, so that the two of them could be together, happy for they could be together, maybe happily, but for good. The dialogue we get between Elphaba and Fiyero in the last quarter of the story is just paper thin. Elphaba does the little, "Oh, you're beautiful," and he's like, "No, I literally have oats growing in my cranium," and she's like, "Really, it's all about perspective." Of course, the fact that he says that line to her before their romantic encounter is also really problematic, but this is the same man who acknowledges that he is brainless and thinks that pointing a pistol at someone dramatically is basically enough to get away with any crime. We get absolutely no emotional processing from Elphaba other than a very brief apology, and the rest of his dialogue focuses solely on them going on to Hades or wherever. If you think about this for a clock tick, this is a really weak ending for this character. I mean, think about Fiyero in the first half of the story, right? He's handsome, he's rich, he's self confident. And dancing through life, he's proud that he's brainless. It's a strategy for him. But as he realizes his affection for Elphaba, he starts to give in more. Her animal politics kind of freak him out still, but he's cool with it to the point that he becomes a captain in the National Guard, basically, with the pure intention of committing treason so he can find her, which is a pretty significant sacrifice. By the time he dramatically points a gun at both the wizard and Galinda, it's like, man, this dude really is not the brightest, but he would give anything for this person. And he's not just this shallow material man anymore. He's learning to sacrifice himself for a person he truly cares about. which is great. I love that. The story ends with Galinda and Elphaba reflecting again on how they impacted each other, but Elphaba is still the green one and Galinda's still the pink one. And Fiyero doesn't have bones anymore. So it kind of feels like he gave an awful lot in exchange for Elphaba's journey of self discovery, although in the end that's a win because he gets to spend the rest of what I guess is his immortal scarecrow life with her. I understand that Elphaba and Galinda are the stars of the show, and I agree with the writers that they deserve to be the owners of the end of the story. So I've got no problem with that. I think that's good. I do think there's a 5-minute solution to the Fiyero problem that would be very true to the tone of the story and also would add a lot of emotional impact and reveal a lot of maturity in both Elphaba and Fiyero's characters. We need a brief, thoughtful song between Elphaba and Fiyero when he comes to find her in the castle after the melting. Now, I don't think it needs to be a new song, but Fiyero already has had a major number with Dancing Through Life that could create an amazing, tragic, brief reprise where we could see him process some of his learning. What if the scene where Fiyero finds Elphaba alive went like this? Fiyero knocks on the trapdoor, and Elphaba realizes what the Grimoire had to do to him to keep him alive. She's apologetic, but Fiyero encourages her that she saved him. Then we go into a brief reprise of Dancing Through Life with some new lyrics. And this version is probably a little slower and in a different key. And Fiyero sings about how he used to be dancing through life, but that life was purposeless. It was hollow, and how now he sees that living for others, especially his love, Elphaba, has given him someone else to dance for, right? He's going to keep dancing because that's what he does. He's brainless, right? It becomes that they're going to adopt a new attitude to life that they're going to enter into together. They're not going to be these destructive people anymore. They're not going to be these empty-headed people anymore. They're going to live in a new way together. And then that gives us a sense of hope for when they go on into the... Think about what the visuals in this scene could look like, too. Think about the iconic dances that Ray Bolger does as the Scarecrow in the original Wizard of Oz. I mean, there's such a rich choreographic precedent for the way that character moves. He's wobbly, but he always stays standing, right? He's always standing himself back up. He's propping. And it's a brilliant visual metaphor for what Fiyero has experienced through all of his tragedies and trauma, right? So imagine what the choreography could be during this reprise. Fiyero tries to sweep Elphaba off of her feet with the same ballroom moves we saw him use at the Ozdust, but he's stumbling and he can barely dance like he used to with his alfalfa legs. But every time he falls, he gets back up and keeps going, and all through he's still the smiling, charming person he was, but now he knows what it's like to fight for that chipper disposition instead of having it just handed it to him all the time. In the context of this exchange, Elphaba would have the chance to see what he really gave for her and how he's really changed. I think that creating that space, which would only have taken 3 or 4 minutes, would seriously have rounded out Fiyero's character development. If you think about it, you could actually fit the melody of Dancing Through Life over the instrumentation of For Good, and it would sound kind of cool and somber. I think this simple addition, or something similar, would really make the end of the story feel a lot less shallow for this third major character whose considerable traits are, presently, being willfully stupid and, even with a burlap face, truly beautiful. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Mm.